Well, we've got an exciting show today. This is to clear up some of the misunderstanding about new laws coming to the state of Oklahoma that will impact real estate investors and those specifically engaging in wholesale activity. Today, I'm here with Brian Hudleston out of Tulsa. He is a licensed real estate attorney practicing in law throughout the state. He's got a wealth of information and really going to bring some truth here to stop the spin and really help us to understand what do these new laws mean and how could they change your business or maybe somebody that you've been buying from the last few years. How is this going to change? So Brian, welcome to the show. Very excited to have you today.
Oh, thank you.
Excellent.
And there's November 1, an amendment to the act that applies to licensed real estate brokers, real estate agents, realtors, goes into effect, which is I can't say it's universally, but every realtor that I've talked to thinks it's a really good idea. Okay. Now, not every real estate investor, and certainly not folks in the wholesaling business, or sometimes people call it flipping, contract flipping, not sort of the house flipping like what you see on the TV shows, but where you get a property under contract and then you don't remodel the house, you flip the contract to an investor who will remodel the house, and either you get a fee for assigning the contract, or you have a title closing company that will do what they call a dual closing, where you close as the wholesaler your contract with the homeowner, and at the same time, and the purchase money to the homeowner flows from the dual closing, where you're closing your twin contract with the investor. And so the investor's funds flow through from one closing to your closing to the homeowner, and the homeowner never actually sees how much you make on as the wholesaler for your they use different words for it. It's really a commission. At least that's what the legislature thought, and that's what realtors think, is it's a commission on a sale of a home. And as a result, the only licensed realtors are entitled to receive commissions. Wholesalers would call it, I don't know, a wholesale fee, transfer fee, finder's fee, whatever, but you can call a chicken a duck. That doesn't make it a duck. And so the law that goes into effect November 1, that basically it's a very minor change, as far as it's not a whole new law. It's just an amendment to an existing law, but it requires that a person in the position of a wholesaler, flipper, contract flipper, must be a licensed realtor in order to do that transaction. And I think that's going to the extent people follow the law, I think it's going to significantly impact the wholesaling market, from the standpoint of you have to be a realtor to do it, but if you're a realtor, you're not going to do it, because realtors take a commission on the gross sales price of a property. What they don't do, which is it's one of the I want to be careful about this, because I don't have a problem with wholesalers myself personally. I'm a real estate investor myself, and I'm happy for a wholesaler to come to me with a house, and I buy him out of that, or take an assignment of that contract, and then I've got a house, because wholesalers quite often will have a below market price for that house, and even with their fee, it's still a good investment for me as a real estate investor. But the reason why realtors won't do these deals is because unlike a wholesaler that's going to sort of arm's length negotiate the best price they can with the homeowner so that they can then flip the contract for a fee, a markup, $5,000, 10 grand, 20 grand. I've seen wholesale fees, where the wholesaler's making 20 grand on a flip of the contract or assignment to an investor, depending on the price of the property and the price that they're able to negotiate with the homeowner, how unsophisticated the homeowner is in their knowledge of the transaction, how desperate they are to, a number, I don't want to say desperate, a number of different situations could make a homeowner enter into a contract with a wholesaler at a price far below fair market value for their home. Regardless of the condition of the home, it's still going to have a fair market value, and this is going to be something below that so that the wholesaler can mark it up. Because me as an investor, I'm not going to pay over market value for the house. I'm going to pay market or less. So it's still, even with the commission, it's got to be that. What a realtor won't do is do that kind of transactional negotiation with the homeowner to get the homeowner to enter into a contract with the realtor that's for a lower amount, to allow the realtor to then mark up the property and sell it for a markup, and then receive the legal commission on the sale, because the new law allows you to receive a commission on this kind of a sale if you're a licensed realtor. Realtors just won't do that. Any realtor that's with any one of the large realtor houses, McGraw, get the idea, Remax, those companies are not going to allow their realtors to enter into this transaction like that. That's sort of a conflict of interest between the realtor and the realtor's fiduciary duties to the homeowner.
Right. Well, yeah, you've got the markup, right? Well, to back up the tape to those that maybe haven't performed anything with a wholesaler before, or it's what it really appeals to is young professionals that maybe have limited funds that want to get into the investment game. And what you can do is you can put a bunch of advertisement out, or you can mail postcards, or you can put a little sign that says, "I pay cash for homes." We've all seen it. Okay. We've all been at a street corner and seen this.
Jeff Spy's houses.
Right. And then they call your number, your personal cell, and they say, "Hey, I saw your sign. Come on by. I've got a property I want to sell." You don't have any cash yourself, but yet you present yourself like you do have cash. And you say, "Well, tell you what, I've looked through the home and it's kind of you need a lot of work here. I'm going to go ahead and offer you $30,000 for this home. Okay. But I want 30 days to close, and I'll pay cash at the end of that 30 days. You get them to sign a contract that they're going to close in 30 days, but you put a little clause in that contract that allows you to then remarket that property and sell that contract to someone else. We call it contract reassignment. Then you, who have no money to your name, okay, you don't have to have any money. You literally can have zero money with the exception of what you spent for the little sign in the yard. And now you're the quote unquote owner with equitable interest to that property. And you then post it online. You go on Craigslist and you say, $65,000 for this fixer upper, come check it out. And then during your inspection period, you get all these people to tour the home, or maybe just even one you find, one in cash investor. You sign the contract for $65,000 and you have that investor come to the closing just slightly after you close. And they do what's called a double close, where they borrow the cash from that secondary transaction, that $65,000 transaction, to pay the $30,000 transaction, and you walk away with that $30,000 gap, or that $25,000 gap, or $35,000 gap in this case. And this not only usually does the the first owner of the property has no idea a lot of times this is happening. They've got no clue that the second transaction is happening. And we've heard in several cases where the seller, once they find out, they're very mad. In fact, one guy even brought a shotgun to closing. Yeah, was waiting for the investor outside in the parking lot. And then
I only bring a 38 to closings.
There you go. Well, he needed rage. You need a little bit grace on the aim there. So, but yeah, so this is the problem. This is what's been going on for many, many years. This has actually exponentially grown the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And now we have any street corner you want to go on in Tulsa and Oklahoma City, there's just sign upon sign upon sign about we pay cash for homes. So now, November 1st, if you want to do that, you can do it, but you've got to be a licensed agent now, and which means you got to go through the 90-hour course. You got to pay your fees. You got to not only do that, but now you're a provisional sales associate your first year, which means you got to go underneath a licensed broker who's going to allow you to even do that type of behavior. Not all brokers will. They don't want the liability. They don't want the in their insurance companies in a lot of cases won't even cover these type of contracts. They want
it's not going to happen.
There you go. So tell me, for those, because I can feel them in my ears right now saying, but we help people.
Mm-hmm.
That's
well, they help me.
Like
I said, I buy houses. Brian buys houses. I got a lot of, I'm not just a real estate attorney. I'm a real estate investor here in Tulsa County. And so I have a real estate portfolio, and I'm happy to look at deals brought to me by wholesalers, because for the very reason that they typically have negotiated a below market price for whether it's a rent house or a commercial property. I mean, this isn't just limited to residential real estate, but they've got a property under contract, and it's at below market typically, and the negotiation with me and the wholesaler is how much is the markup over that going to be for me to get the deal. I'm negotiating with the wholesaler over their commission.
Yep. What's your fee?
And it's great because for an investor, because we have to find investable properties. How are you going to do that? And you're gonna go to foreclosure sales, tax auctions, look in the MLS, have a realtor. You're paying typically fair market value for these properties. You're not getting deals. You're getting deals when they're off market. So these wholesalers are great from my perspective as an investor, not as my perspective as looking out for homeowners, of course, but great in that they're finding these properties off market, and they're bringing in off market deals where only me or maybe 2 or 3 other investors on their list of their list. Every wholesaler's got a list of guys like me that they take their deals to over and over.
And I'm glad you're bringing that
multiple
up.
houses.
So that's the key point here is the law. What is it? House Bill 1187 or 1185. And for those that are like, I wonder how narrow this passed. This thing was a landslide. It was 91-1, yay to nay. So to think that the state's not behind that bill, you got everybody.
Well, the Oklahoma, I can't remember what the lobbying group is, but it's the Association of Realtors. Okay.
Yeah, the Oklahoma
a powerful
Association
lobby.
of Realtors. Yep.
Yeah, it's a powerful lobby, and I'm not saying that as if they're only looking out for themselves or that being powerful is bad. But what I'm saying is that in their mind, the realtors, they feel like that this law not only benefits them because you got to be a realtor now, right? So you can't go to one of these guys, and these guys got to go get they got to pay their fees.
If you want to publicly market a property that's not yours, that you don't own, you should be licensed. I think that's where it became clear when you're publicly advertising just what a realtor does, what a real estate broker does. You broker the sale of real estate. And part of your sales pitch, part of your key is advertising, right? And we have these methods for advertising, and they're very well regulated. You don't just run an ad on Facebook as a licensed brokerage and just do whatever you want. You have very specific things that have to be in that ad, because the state wants to know who's advertising this. If you're advertising wrong, if you do some type of violation of housing discrimination, they want to be able to know who you are and how to come to you. So that's the big thing. So,
well, you also have to
well, here's the question.
Mhm.
So wholesalers are saying, well, I don't need to be licensed if I don't publicly market. I have a list already of 3,000 investors that I've built this last 10 years, and I don't need to publicly market. I just simply email my list of investors, and that's all I'm doing. So I'm not publicly marketing. So what's the judge think about that?
Well, respectfully, I would draw a distinction that at least as far as the statute is concerned, I don't read it as being primarily because the real estate is being offered to the public generally. I look at it as that because a fee is going to this person that is offering the property to the public or off market privately. It's the notion of receiving a fee for this real estate service and not being a licensed realtor, because there is an exception, and I'll tell you who the exception is. Folks like me. If you have a law license, you don't have to be a licensed realtor to receive a fee or a commission on the sale of real estate. But if other than attorneys, our license kind of trumps a whole lot of different licenses, but went to law school and all that. But and we have a fiduciary responsibility
Bingo.
to our client,
client.
And to some degree to the public. But one of the things that besides just the whether it's to the public or not, being a licensed realtor, you have to make sure that all of the residential property condition disclosure forms are provided to the prospective buyer. And if you know of a defect in the property that's not being disclosed, the statutes require the realtor to give their own residential property condition disclosure form to the prospective buyer before they sign the contract, so that they we're not a 100% buyer beware, caveat emptor type state when it comes to selling real estate. And so an unlicensed wholesaler
doesn't have any duty.
They're not providing.
So what what are you referring to is the mandatory duties and responsibilities, the broker responsibility. That's this little form here, and this form is something that every licensed agent's supposed to be handing at some point in the discussion, whether they're signing a listing agreement or maybe they even do it verbally. They have to prove that at some point prior to entering under a contract that they have disclosed the duties and responsibilities, which number one is treat all parties with honesty and exercise reasonable skill and care. Boy, that's a big one. First one, you got to be honest. Not only that, you've got to receive all written offers and counter offers and provide them to that seller. So in this example, if you're representing a seller and you're telling them this is the fair market price you can expect for the property, you got to be honest about that. That
would be, and that's part of that thing I was talking about, conflict of interest, and the reason why realtors will never do this, and that's why it's going to. I think it's going to negatively impact this whole wholesaling sub-industry, because realtors won't do it and wholesalers can't do it if they don't have a realtor license. So it's catch-22. if you're a wholesaler and you're trying to get this thing at a good price, the last thing you're going to want to do is do a competitive market analysis or
Right.
broker's price
In
opinion,
front of the seller.
letting the homeowner know, here's all the comps in your area.
Sure.
This is the, this is the top end of the market,
Mhm.
100 grand. Market's going up. I think we should list it for maybe a little bit below this if you're really wanting, to price it to sell. But,
Mhm.
they're going to be like, nah, let's get this thing for 20, 30 grand below that so I can get a great commission when I flip it to, Mr. Investor on my investor list. Here's another thing that I've run into with, and again, I like wholesalers. They bring me deals.
Sure.
I'm not against it from that perspective. But I
We got to play by the
recognize,
rules. You got to play by the
yeah,
rules now.
I
The game has
recognize that there
evolved.
are, yeah, I recognize that there are, pros and cons to the whole thing. And certainly the legislature and the realtors see a whole lot of cons and not very many pros. But one of the things I've noticed that wholesalers will also do, in addition to, I don't want to say misleading, but creating the impression in the mind of the buyer that they are the one that's going to buy the house and close on it, that they're the
Right.
ones buying the house. A number of these guys or gals will then file a memorandum of contract. They'll record it. And as you know, no realtor records any kind of memorandum of their listing agreement, or do buyers and sellers record the fact that a property is under a purchase and sale agreement. Typically, unless maybe, the seller fails to close and the buyer wants to sue for specific performance of the contract. But typically, you enter into a contract with a buyer, nothing is recorded that clouds your title. Many wholesalers will record a memorandum of that assignable purchase contract for the very reason of clouding the seller's title and preventing the seller from selling to anyone else while the wholesaler attempts to find a buyer for that house, even if it's they run past the deadline in their contract to do it. They've got this memorandum that's recorded that the homeowner can do nothing about unless they hire an attorney like me to file a quiet title lawsuit or something to cancel this memorandum that clouds their title. So there's been some. I think the wholesalers have nobody but themselves to blame for the view that the realtors and the legislature has about the need for them to be licensed.
So for the two crowds that we have here, one is going to be, they haven't gotten into wholesaling yet. They wanted to get into wholesaling. They've been waiting and they're listening to this and they're going,
great idea.
Yeah, it sounds like a great idea. It really does. You read a bunch of these. I mean, I was just browsing around the internet, just looking at, how to become a wholesaler, and all these, articles are written. All these ideas. I mean, it really sounds like a good thing to get into if you're a young guy with no money and you want to start a real estate business. It sounds pretty good.
I have a whole set of contracts that I sell to wholesalers for a set price. That's the wholesale contract, the assignment of the contract, a supplemental agreement regarding the contract, the contract with the investor that's on the other side of it, and termination of the contract. A whole set of things to get a guy like what you're talking about in business, so that they're not just using a set that they've cabbaged off the internet. A custom designed set of forms for a home flipper. I mean, like I said, I got no problem with them. As far as the notion, it's the individual wholesaler and how they conduct their affairs with the homeowner that is where mischief can happen. But a principled young person like what you're talking about, that full disclosure, lets them know what they're trying to do, and the homeowner's fine with that because they're getting a quick sale for cash, no inspections, no financing contingency, no inspection contingencies, because I'm just buying this house as is, where is, to add it to my rental property portfolio. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. It's the problem is that that's not been in practice how a lot of these guys have operated.
Mm-hmm. So November 1st, should they, do you recommend somebody getting involved in this anymore? Or have they de-incentivized the point where, to the point where it's you shouldn't become a wholesaler after November 1st?
Well, okay, that's a good question. Okay, all right, that's a really good question, because this probably will be of great interest to the wholesalers out there. There's basically no teeth to this law. So, I mean, how is this going to be? You're a wholesaler. You enter a contract after it's now illegal, November 1. How are you going to get caught? And who's going to, and if you are caught, who's going to prosecute you? Who's going to have an interest in this? You're not licensed, so you've got no license to be suspended by the Oklahoma Real Estate Commission. That's the thing. It's the same, honestly, with guys who commit unauthorized practice of law. My area, they don't have a law license to be suspended. They're practicing law without a license, or practicing real estate without a license. The licensing entity for the state of Oklahoma has no jurisdiction over them. So it's going to have to be some law enforcement that's going to want to prosecute somebody for practicing real estate without a license. And you'll probably never be able to get a license if this comes to the attention of the Real Estate Commission, because if you ever did apply after doing this, you're radioactive. But if you have no intention to get a license, what's going to happen? I mean, we'll probably have to wait and see to some degree to see whether or not
which would be the seller.
Oklahoma Attorney General makes this a mission of theirs, but I got my doubts. I got my doubts that there's going to be much in the way of enforcement.
So the seller would be the one that would cry wolf, I would assume, in this situation, other than another real estate agent that sees the advertisement for a 3-bed, 2-bath home, $99,000, and he calls and he goes, "Wait a minute, you don't own this home. You're just assigning this contract. That's illegal, right? You need to be licensed now." And so they go and they call OREC or whatever. And then OREC finds out, well, this guy's not licensed to begin with, so it's not our jurisdiction.
Well, they sent him a nasty letter. You need to not do this. So what?
Right. But bingo. So that gets us back to the whole back full circle. So how is the public being protected now? I mean, unless they get licensed, now they're licensed, and now the seller complains to the OREC, and OREC goes and now they can fine or revoke a license or suspend it or whatever. But if they're not licensed, if they stay doing the same thing they've been doing for the last 10 years, who cries wolf? What happens when you do?
That is a very good question, because I can tell you this. Not for me personally, because I am licensed as an attorney. So even if I did something tangentially as a real estate investor for my own account, I'm still a lawyer all the time, 24/7. So I have to watch out. I wouldn't want to get a letter from the Bar Association. But for your average real estate investor who doesn't have a license to lose with the state of Oklahoma, that's not a realtor, that's not an attorney, they just own a portfolio of homes, and they buy homes from flippers. After November 1, here comes a contract where this guy's wanting to take a commission on the sale and assign this house, this contract. It's off market. the investor's willing to do it. The homeowner has already signed this contract. That's what that's their expectancy is to get this amount of money, unless the homeowner um, uh, decides to say this contract is void. I can walk from it. I have no duty to close, Mr. Buyer. Okay, that's been
Or just
assigned the
doesn't show up to
contract.
closing. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't have to show up to closing. There's no way that the investor can enforce the contract by specific performance because the contract is not legal. It's void. It's because it's been entered into by a wholesaler. But for that, so what? I mean, if I'm a investor and the buyer walks, I'm not filing suit for specific performance anyway. I'm just going to go to the next deal.
Boom. Done.
So as the homeowner closes with me, I got the house. Now, what are they going to do? They find out that the contract was void or illegal or voidable. Do they go file a lawsuit to unwind the sale after they've gotten the money? What are the odds of that?
Right.
Really, really low. And even then, it's like, I suppose it's possible, but I just don't see. I don't see there being much of a downside risk here. The flipper's going to get, or the wholesaler's going to get his commission. Normally the homeowner, their expectancy is just what the contract says they're going to get. That's why they signed the contract in the first place. Even if they get seller's remorse and they want to cancel the contract, if someone tells them it's cancelable, fine, it's canceled. That's about it. But they could cancel these contracts anyway with very little downside risk because most investors or buyers have got better things to do than to go file a suit for specific performance.
Right. And I think it's important. I think it's important to note that these real estate deals are occurring usually in a situation that's not your most education heavy seller. Okay. Usually this is not typically if they're very, educated in the field, they don't work with a wholesaler because they know what their property's worth. They know how it does, and they want that markup for themselves to keep. And that's
for sale by owner.
Right. For sale by owner. Exactly. On Zillow. I mean, the effectiveness of that, Zillow alone has done an amazing, especially now that we're a seller's market, which we are transitioning slowly back towards a buyer's market. So watch for that. And I think that's another important thing. So 5 years ago, MLS had flip properties and buy and hold properties at 1% or higher rent to value ratios. So that's coming back potentially. We get enough wholesalers where it's just not interested enough. There's just not enough, or it's too easy to list online. And all of a sudden the public market's actually the best place for a seller. And it starts to do its thing that the public market always does, which is controlling supply and demand and getting us back where the pendulum swings back again towards the buyer's market. We've been that way for 14 years, a 3.5% annual appreciation. These 12% appreciations we've seen the last year, they're not going to stay around. They can't mathematically. There's been no new jobs in central Oklahoma or even in Tulsa, no considerable boost of economic, we haven't had a new industry come in. We haven't had a Tesla plant. We haven't had Samsung moving here like Austin has or Dallas. These are economic cities that have really demonstrated that they've got the income to support appreciation.
Well, you say that, but I mean, Tulsa has gone over 1 million now, million people, and that's a big benchmark. We're now a major city, a major metropolitan area, over 1 million people. So I'm optimistic about Tulsa, honestly, I really am. But I agree with you by and large that things don't just always continue to go up. There will be another thing is besides Zillow that's really changed things is Facebook Marketplace. Amazing how many realtors, even though they can list and they do list in the MLS, they co-list in Facebook Marketplace and get an you know offers that way.
Sure,
So
buyer
yeah,
leads,
I
all
agree
that.
that I agree that there's usually a reason why. Well, like I said before, it's off market. These people
Mhm.
have not contacted a realtor. They've not typically put a sign in the yard. There's somebody that this hardworking wholesaler, by working a neighborhood, working contacts, guerrilla type marketing, sticking
Mhm.
these signs out where frankly it's not legal to stick these signs out, on the,
Right. Right.
they
Yeah,
put them
there's
out
a
there and they stay
reason
there.
why Mattress Mac and Sears doesn't do that. Okay, like
Yeah,
there's
exactly.
a
There'd be
reason.
signs everywhere.
Yeah,
But but this the guerrilla marketing, they through their hard work, like you said before, these are enterprising young people wanting to try to start a new prof-
sure.
profession.
Right.
They find these people off market and get these things under contract,
They will
and
always be there, I
they're
think.
low information folks.
Right. Low information, and also typically the whole business model is to find somebody in what we call exigent circumstances, right? Somebody's just died, or they can't pay their utility bill, or they're behind on their taxes. Something is occurring to which a sense of urgency has been entered into the transaction. They need cash now. They got to get out of the home. Maybe they didn't own it until last week, in which they finally got, I mean, all about what am I talking about? Trusts and somebody dies and leaves a home and nobody knows where it's going to go, and they fighting over that. Those whole cases can really develop a lot of emotions, and people just go, I just get rid of the home, and the wholesaler fits that part. So I think really the only change is going to happen to these new Western. A lot of people are familiar with the big guys, the new Westerns, there's just one guy that is on news or doing radio ads on News 9, and I'm going, and TV ads. I mean, these things are $30,000-$40,000 ads that they're running on TV here in our market. And you just go, I think it's those folks that the law is going to be able to kind of make an example out of. Hey, you need to be licensed. But as far as the small guys, from what you and I've just discussed, November 1st, it's not going to be very exciting. It's not really going to change much.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm guessing they're probably going to keep on doing what they're doing until somebody gets made an example of, and they think that there's some risk to what they're doing, being prosecuted in some way. I just, but the
So
big
right now, if you
companies.
had a case, who's going to prosecute them? If you had a case, I'm an unlicensed wholesaler. Who's coming after me?
Well, I mean, I think the district attorney for the county or for the state. That's about the only. To me, that's the only. For the civil penalties that are
Which would be
in
the
the
seller.
statute.
The seller would be the seller probably, that says, I've been wrongful. This guy swindled me out of money, and I'm going to sue him. And they go to small claims court. They file I mean, what do they do?
These wholesalers are going to be
first?
judgment proof. I mean, these guys are self-employed. They don't have a salary. They don't have a paycheck. I mean, if you sued a wholesaler in small claims court and got a judgment, good luck collecting it. I mean, I don't know how you collect it. So I don't know that a homeowner is gonna want to do any of that. That's why I'm saying that I don't know how much downside there's going to be for an unlicensed wholesaler, after the fact, unless there is some real interest in, prosecuting them for a quasi criminal penalty for but I mean that's about it.
Nobody's got the nobody's
I
standing
just don't
up on
think,
TV about it. Yeah.
I just don't think there's going to be a whole lot of uh, it, it's hard enough to get traction with the district attorney's office in most counties for much more what I'd call serious um, civil/criminal type matters. I mean, this is almost a civil matter in that it's a contract that is void or voidable, and I just don't know how much interest the district attorneys are going to get in enforcing this new statute. It's going to make a big deal for people who do have a realtor's license. They're they can then do it. I just don't think that they will, because I think most realtors are going to recognize there's an inherent conflict of interest in entering into this kind of a deal where they're making all the profit over the price that they agree to with their client.
Right. Right. Yep. All right, Brian. Well, you've been a wealth of help here. Can you think of anything else that, oh gosh, is on the top of your mind as far as these wholesaler before we wrap this up?
No, I mean, other than, if you are a wholesaler and, I think that you're going to continue to do this, that you're going to want to disclose everything to the buyer about the transaction, so that nobody feels like they were victimized by you, and maybe you won't be the wholesaler that's made an example of by whoever decides that they need to make an example of a wholesaler after the statute passes in order to try to get compliance with the statute.
Right. Well, and if the buyer goes around the wholesaler to the seller, there is no state enforcement that's going to help you out in that scenario. Just remember that if you as the wholesaler, if the buyer decides to jump over you and go right to the seller and try to cut their own deal, you got no state that's coming at you. You're going to have to police your own.
You're good. That's a good point. I'm never going to get another deal from that wholesaler.
Right.
I'm never going to get another deal from that wholesaler. And to the extent that other guys find out that I'm burning them by going and getting a better price with the homeowner, once I've found out about them, that I'm only going to be able to do that for so long.
Right.
But
you're right.
That could also kill it. If you're a wholesaler, you're going to do all this work, and if you're going to have to be really worried that you're not going to get burned by your counterparty on the other side.
And now that's out though, every single time you see a wholesaling deal, you see the address, the person's going straight to that person's address, knocking on the door. Hey, I know you just signed a deal with this person, but I'll offer you this much more. You do know that contract's not legally enforced.
Yeah, but I wouldn't do that. I'm either going to take the deal that comes to me from the wholesaler or turn it down. I'm not going to burn.
There you go.
Guy. I mean,
there you go. And that's what it is.
It's a small town.
It's
it's a million people.
It's the wild west.
That gets around.
The wild Midwest. All right, Brian. It's been great talking to you. Great stuff. Thanks for coming on the show today.
All right. Nice talking to you.
Keep in touch. Bye-bye.